Hi everyone, my name is James Feeney. Welcome to or back to my channel. Today I wanted to share a little project that I've been working on and to discuss the ideas and concepts that go into the idea of a travel altar or a portable compact sort of altar. So getting into, I would say, my process. So I'm gonna in just a moment take you guys over to my table and we're gonna unpack mine so you guys can see what's in it, but also to just delve into how you might go about making one of your own. Hopefully this is interesting and can serve as some inspiration and maybe give you some ideas if you are considering making your own or have one and maybe are looking to kind of redo it in some way. I know I've watched similar videos on travel or portable altars and they have been really helpful for me, so just contributing to that. I first want to get into, I guess, the what goes into a travel altar, certain things to me that are very distinct to the idea of a travel altar itself, as opposed to, say, a larger, more permanent altar or a fixture that you might have in a sacred space. It really is a sacred space on the go, or a sacred space that you can set up and bring wherever you wish. This is something that's great if you are, of course, traveling, going places for long periods of time and want to take elements of your practice with you to be able to continue to do that when you're away from something that's more permanent. It's also great for those who maybe don't have the luxury or the privilege of practicing openly at home or wherever it is that they live, and so you might feel the need to keep that to yourself and keep it private and secret to some extent. So this can be helpful for you in that regard as well. And some of the biggest things that I've seen in creating a portable or travel altar of my own is just that it really causes me to reflect on what my practice is all about, because I'm distilling it down to its base parts. I don't have so many things available to put into a travel altar, so I have to pick and choose, and picking and choosing the things that are most important or smaller sized and versions of things that are the most important to me in my practice. So it made me realize, for example, that I really value writing things down and having paper and pen as a big part of my practice. It made me realize, say, if I had to have one crystal, what would that crystal be and why? So things like that. Or ingredients. What ingredients do I work with the most? What am I going to choose that is most important when I don't have all of my various herbs and plants at my disposal to use? So I get a good idea of what my practice is like at its core in making something like this. Likewise, I think it's a fun activity just in that you are trying to, I guess, be inventive in that you want to have tools and things in here that are the most multi-purpose. So while I think it's really nice to maybe have certain plants like nettle and mugwort and various other more, I would say, herbs that I don't use so much, I'm not going to incorporate those in a travel altar just because they have more specific purposes to them. I don't find myself using them as much. So I want to pick herbs and crystals and materials that I can use in a multitude of ways. So it's really fun to see that the things in here can be used in a variety of different fashions, and that I can kind of piece them together and select how they will combine, almost. So like a little cookbook or a recipe. And for the purposes of this, I've made mine. I have one that's rather plain. I think that that's also something that's beneficial if you are making a portable or travel altar for the purposes of keeping your practice, your magical practice, under wraps and keeping it private and secret. Having something that is a little bit less conspicuous is helpful. Personally, I just thought it would be nice to have something that was very plain, and I guess in a way it is nice to have that element of, for it to be inconspicuous, just so that it just appears like a normal box. Something about that, to me, it feels very secret, and like nobody could know what's inside of this unless they were to open it. So I am going to take you guys over to my table. We're going to unpack this, go through the materials, how I went about creating this, and what I put in it, how I put it in, for what purposes, etc. So we're going to get right into that. Hi everyone, so we're over at what would normally be my tarot table, and we're going to get into my travel altar, my portable altar. So part of the reason for me making this is actually because I was supposed to be on a very long trip, and it was supposed to be just getting underway, of course, with the global pandemic and coronavirus and all of that. I had to reschedule, so that's in the works of being rescheduled. But considering the trip was supposed to kind of be now, I thought that it would be fun for me to make that travel altar. So just something exciting to do kind of when you're thinking about a trip that you're excited about, and you're wondering what can I do now to kind of get myself in the spirits or in the mood of that. And so I chose this box. I honestly forget what this box was originally used for. I've measured it, and it is about 6.5 inches by 4.5 inches. So to give you perspective size wise, 4.5 by 6.5 inches at its largest. So where the lid goes over the top part. It's just a normal cardboard box. And so we'll start by taking the lid off, and I'll talk about what we have right here. So on the inner part, I've painted a depiction of the Sheila Na Gig. For those who don't know, or maybe you do know if you've watched my channel and a few of my videos, this the Sheila Na Gig is my matron. She is the deity that I work with primarily. So to have her here, say if I were setting up an altar, and to be able to just set up this standing up, I then have some imagery that pertains to her, and I would be able to see her and to interact with her in a way. So that was really important for me in this, was to use all of the space available to me. So I'm not an artist by any stretch, but I used some paints that I had lying around and just painted a depiction of her on the inner portion. So I didn't really have any, I don't know, all of the colors were very vibrant. So she's green, and that's just how that's going. The hair kind of actually reminds me of a sun, so it's nice to see how that kind of came out. But to be able to just have this sitting up and use that, potentially, say if I were anywhere and was using this altar, open it, and there I have the Sheila Na Gig, the deity that I work with. And so getting into this portion here, I just cut out a piece of fabric to lay over the top. I didn't want things to get jumbled all around and to start smashing against the paint and to chip at the paint, or for the paint to get on any of the items. So I just took a raw piece of fabric and cut it with some sharp scissors and put it over top of everything, because I felt like a lot of what this is packing it in a way, and to such an extent that nothing in here gets damaged. So a big part of that for me was to have a piece of fabric to lay over the top, so that way nothing would damage the paint and nothing would get damaged by rumbling around so much. I've also packed this to a very full extent, so nothing else really would fit in here at this point, and that's part of the process, I think. When I found that there was some extra room, things were rattling around and could move around, but now that it's pretty much just as it is, nothing can really move around. And so when it shakes and moves, nothing goes flying, and I don't hear things rattling, which is good, because there are some fragile things in here, and I'll get into how I've packed this and why, for the sake of the materials. Because say I threw this in a carry-on or luggage, it's going to be bounced around a bit, and I didn't want anything to get ruined. So in this first little bag that we have here, sorry, there's some glare. These are incense, just very small stick incense. These are sandalwood. Sandalwood is my favorite type of incense. To me, it feels very earthy. It feels like it connects to divinity. It's great for protection and also for cleansing. And so for me, this is my most used and most multi-purpose incense. I chose very small sticks. These are from a brand that I really like that makes more small stick incense. These can also be broken, so I can break this in half. I can break off a tiny piece. Say I only want it to burn for a minute or two and I don't want the whole area to get super smoky. I can just break it wherever I see fit and light it at that point, which is really nice because it's not on a wooden sort of spindle thing. It's just the raw incense itself, which is helpful. Pertaining to the incense, I guess we'll get into the side portion. I included 2 seashells. Now these are just ones that I found at the beach, and I thought that I could actually put the incense in that little opening, that hole right there. I could have it either coming out at a little bit of an angle through there, or I could just have it like this and maybe have it sitting in here, and that way, so there's something to catch the ashes, a way to go about burning the incense. There kind of needs to be some way to burn it. You can't just light incense and put it on a surface. So this shell is actually with the intention of doing that. This, I thought I could really, anything that was burning could go in this shell. It's a pretty thick shell, and I could use it as an offering dish. So I could put materials in this to offer to the Shio Nagig or to offer in general. I could use this as more of a chalice and fill it with water to incorporate that water element, because it does have a really bowl, like a bowl-like quality. It dips in, so I can use this to burn things in as a chalice of sorts with that water element, and I can use it as an offering dish. So it's very multi-purpose. Likewise, the shell I think is good for burning incense in a really creative way. Next up, we will get into, okay, so we have this piece of paper. I'm not going to actually open this fully. Inside of it, I've written a few of my go-to sigils. So I know what they mean when I look at them. I haven't even really labeled them, but they are pretty personal. Two of them are actually things that I sort of received from the Shio Nagig that I kind of channeled or came up with in meditation, and some are more consciously created sigils, but they are my go-tos, things for healing and protection, mostly things of that sort. So of course, when you're traveling, those are the ones that I would use the most and really want to take advantage of. So I'll either write them on another slip of paper and keep them on me, or put them somewhere, or I might even draw these sigils that are in here on myself. So I just wanted a little cheat sheet of those sigils so that I wouldn't have to try to entirely memorize them, because they're a little bit complex, some of them. So next we will get into, I guess we'll do the little vials I have here, the little thing. So as far as ingredients go, these are all of the ingredients I've got in here. So we have a little packet of sage, just some loose sage. Sage for me is very protective, it's cleansing, it kind of equalizes things. And so instead of having, say, a smudge stick of some sort to burn, I thought I could just burn a little piece of the sage. I could incorporate it in some way. I could even put it in this dish and have just a little pinch of it burn, and it would have the same effect. Likewise, using sage in spells is a big one for me. So I'm always looking for things that are more in that cleansing, that healing, that protecting category, because that's where a lot of my magic is situated and the practice that I engage in for the most part. So next we have some chamomile, dried chamomile. As far as my practice goes, this is one that's really healing, it's soothing, it's relaxing, it's going to bring peace and harmony to things, and this is just an ingredient that I find that I use a lot, that I am incorporating into so many of my spells. So for me, it's one of my biggest multi-purpose herbs. Would it be an herb? So yeah, of course, not of course, but for me, I know of course chamomile would make an appearance here. So big multi-purpose one for me, primarily in healing and soothing. And if you're traveling and you want to do a spell for that, that's of course I needed this. So next I have some dried lavender. Lavender is again one of those herbs that is or natural ingredients that is a mainstay for me, that I'm using in so many spells. For me, it's really about purification and protection. There is an element to it that has to do with, I would say, sleep and dreams and good luck, and that's where I think it would really shine. I think maybe even using it a little bit at night while I'm traveling to do a little bit of a sleeping thing, or to have myself in a better state and to relax and to protect myself also. So lavender is a big one for me, so that's why that's in here. And these are just little glass vials that I got at a craft store. I think I got like a bunch in a pack for like $1 or $2. They are glass, so I have made sure to space them out throughout here so that they aren't clanking against each other and that they don't break. That's another reason why I packed this so tightly, so that they don't rumble around and shatter, and there's not glass and all sorts of things going around in there. And so in our final vial, I have salt, specifically very pure sea salt. So for me, salt really connects to both earth and water, especially when it's sea salt, earth and water. It's very grounding, it's highly protective. I have so many uses for salts. I can use it to actually create a sort of protective barrier. I can use it to ground myself and to feel more centered and to connect to that earthly energy. I can also use it, for example, if I'm burning things and don't feel comfortable burning them just on the shell's surface. Salt is a great sort of intermediary and thing to burn things on, because it's not very flammable and it will kind of contain the flame. And so yeah, salt's a big one. I use it for almost any and everything. Very grounding. It's also very protective. It feels very strong and natural to me. So salt was definitely one I needed to have in here. Next, we will get into, so this is just a little piece of Palo Santo, another cleansing sort of atmospheric protective element that we can burn. For me, I like to have, for example, incense lit when I'm doing spells. I feel like it boosts the potency, it creates an atmosphere, it creates this sort of heavy, energetic, magical atmosphere. Same for sage, same for Palo Santo. So if I'm doing any spells, even if I'm not just looking to cleanse and protect, having one of these lit is going to add some potency and power to my working. So I would use these in different ways. For me, sandalwood is the most multi-purpose, and I would probably use this specifically while I'm doing magic of some sort to amplify it. Sage for me is really a space cleanser, and Palo Santo for me is more about protection. That's just how I go about using these, although I can kind of shift the way that I use them. So next we'll go into what's in these little silky drawstring bags, or these little almost like velour drawstring bags. So in this first one, I have a pendulum. And while I don't actually divine using a pendulum very often, it is something that's highly portable and nice to have here. There's a lot of uses that I have for a pendulum. I can do very quick, straightforward divination with a pendulum. I can also do some forms of magic. I can write things on a sheet of paper and kind of come up with my own little pendulum system. So pendulum for me is very multi-purpose. This is green aventurine, and for me that's a nice little crystal to also have in here. And I didn't make room for any tarot cards in here. I just know that I'm going to have tarot cards in like a separate pouch or bag, so it's not that I'm not bringing them with me, it's just that they aren't in this portable altar. But yeah, pendulum, very multi-purpose, very helpful on the go for me. So next I have, and both of these are crystals, so I have a little bit of just some raw black tourmaline. For me, very grounding, very protective. It keeps away negative energies. It feels like I am safe when I have this, and it also feels like I can kind of cleanse myself, my own energies with this by keeping it on me. It makes me feel secure. So I always want to have something that feels very grounding and earthy and protective, like a crystal of that nature. So just a little piece of black tourmaline. And next I have a rose quartz, a little palm stone sized heart. To me, this one feels really special. My mom actually recently gave it to me just out of the blue. She saw it when she was at a flea market, thought of me and got it for me. So there is like a special sort of love imbued in this, on top of the fact that it's rose quartz and it's already very much corresponded to ideas of love of all sorts. And it's in the shape of a heart, which is nice as well. Good for meditation, good for relaxation, good to sort of feel better and to almost have this connection of family and home as well. So all of that feels really beautiful. I was actually somebody who in the past felt almost this weird sort of feeling towards rose quartz as though it was maybe overrated in some way, and I don't know why I felt that. Maybe just because I saw it so much, but I really have an appreciation for it, and it's been a journey, and this specific piece has really deep connections for me. And so having this around for its energy and what it can do magically for me, and in terms of just making me feel better, this is something I needed to include in that portable altar, that travel altar. So that takes us through that. There's a lighter as well, just so that I am able to burn all of these things that I'm talking about burning. Of course, if this was going on in, say, carry-on luggage or something to that effect, I would not be able to have this in there, so this would be something that is subjective. If this was just something I was keeping at home to pull out every now and then, or on a road trip, of course I would have this, but if I was bringing it on a plane in a carry-on luggage, this would not make the list. I don't think they would let me through with this. So yeah, just a lighter. And then we have 2 white tea light candles. So whenever I'm doing any sort of magic, I'm for the most part lighting a candle, and whether that be as just a focal point, something to really raise the energy, it might be a part of the actual spell itself, and that the candle is tied into the manifestation or working. So tea light candles are definite. I almost wish I could bring more. 2 doesn't feel like enough, just because I'm not sure how much I would reuse them. Maybe I'd have one that I can light for a few minutes and it not be really meant to be used magically. It'd just be more of a atmospheric piece, and then I might have another that I'll use for a spell of some sort. But yeah, 2 tea light candles for me. White candles are really that all-purpose. I can use them in any way, shape, or form, and when I'm in a pinch and I only have white candles, I feel like I can still do pretty much every and anything with them. So tea light candles are a big one for me, and of course they're more portable. And so what's left? So we have we'll get into this first. This is just a small container of flying ointment. For me, I engage in I would say a lot of my practice is shamanic in nature, so journeying along with astral travel, meditation, altered states, and so for me, flying ointment is a big one. I'm always using it. It's really helpful, and I have one in this little compact, very small container, so I really enjoy this. And that's also part of what influenced the ingredients I brought, because I was considering, say, mugwort as one to maybe enhance dreams, to enhance meditation and altered states for journeying, but this actually has mugwort as one of its key ingredients, along with a few other herbs that are really conducive for those sorts of things. So that's why I picked these, although I would have liked to have incorporated something like to the effect of mugwort. So yeah, just some flying ointment, because that's a big one for me. And then finally we have, I guess I snuck this in a little, bay leaf. I really like using bay leaf for various workings. A lot of times I will either write a word or a phrase, something small on it, maybe even a sigil, and then I will burn the bay leaf, and it's almost like a wish, or a wish to be manifested, so like a magical wish with a little bit of oomph. So having a bay leaf around is always nice, so I just kind of tuck that in the side. This is really about making use of all of the space for me, so if there was anywhere I could just shove something in and make it fit, I did. So a bay leaf is in there. I know that that's something that I use often. So then we have a notebook and pen. So this is just a travel notebook. It's great for me. I'm somebody who likes to record my workings and what it is that I'm doing, so I can always write down the date. I can write what's going on. If I'm doing tarot pulls or divination and I want to remember that and kind of take copious notes on that, or a meditation or a working, or to write down my dreams, which I do pretty often. So all of that can go in here. It's a really compact, nice size, very small and sturdy. Likewise, I can always rip a page out. Sometimes I use paper that I've written on in terms of magic. I'll write a sigil, I'll write an incantation, I'll write words or something like that, and then I will burn the paper in a way to either say banish whatever it is that I've written to get rid of it, or to manifest it. And so the burning of paper and the use of paper with words that I've written on it is a big part of my magical practice, so these two are very important to have in there. And then at the bottom I just have this little cloth. This cloth was meant to kind of make it so that nothing was sitting on a hard surface. Likewise, I can always take this cloth out, unfold it, and suddenly I have like a little altar cloth that I can set things on, or I have a little tarot cloth, depending on if I don't have one already on me. So this is a big multi-purpose cloth that I can lay my things on to do workings. Likewise, it's just nice to have in here, so that way things are not getting bumped around and pushed and shoved. And the whole purpose of me making this as tight a fit as possible is, again, so that they aren't all rattling around. We don't have glass breaking or shells shattering. We don't want any of that. So that's something that I kept in mind as I was putting things in here, really taking advantage of the space in that way. So that brings us to the end of what is within my travel altar. I'd be curious to know, if you do have a travel altar, what you have in it, what sorts of supplies are important for you and are mainstays in your practice. If you don't have a travel altar and you're watching this because you are either considering making one, I'd be curious to know what sorts of things you think you're going to put in it. Also, size wise, I know that there are some travel altars that are as small as an Altoid tin. There are others that are more shoebox size. I think that this is kind of my happy medium with between one that feels really, really compact and small and one that feels a little bit larger. So let me know what yours are like if you have one, and if you're considering making one, I'd be curious to know what it looks like or what you're putting in it. So that brings us to the end. I hope you guys enjoyed this and found it informative. If you did, please feel free to like and subscribe and all that good jazz. Hope you're all doing well, and until next time, bye everyone.